Hidden within everything is a single, living consciousness. This is the Anima Mundi, the world soul, an idea that has mesmerized alchemists and philosophers for thousands of years. By the end of this, you will understand how this ancient secret reveals your own profound connection to the entire cosmos. We will uncover why alchemists believed their work could heal a fractured universe, and how a Renaissance magician was burned at the stake for defending this very concept. What does the idea of a living world stir within you? This universal soul is not a distant God, but a living presence woven into the fabric of reality itself. The Anima Mundi is the essential life force that breathes through every stone, every plant, every star, and every human heart. It is the invisible connective tissue that binds the vast cosmos, the macrocosm, to the smallest individual being, the microcosm. In this grand design, the universe above mirrors the human soul within. The same energy that swirls galaxies also animates your thoughts and feelings. This is why the alchemists saw their work as far more than turning lead into gold. They believed that by purifying matter in their flasks, they were also purifying this universal spirit, healing a fracture within the world soul itself. Their laboratory was a miniature universe, and every transformation they achieved was a step toward cosmic and personal wholeness. This belief that your inner state is intimately tied to the state of the world forms the very bedrock of esoteric thought. It suggests that to know the cosmos, you must first look within. This profound idea did not begin in the alchemist's laboratory. Its roots reached deep into the heart of ancient Greece, where the philosopher Plato first gave it a formal voice. In his dialogue, Timaeus, Plato described the cosmos not as a dead machine, but as a single, living creature endowed with its own soul. He proposed that a divine craftsman fashion the universe, infusing this physical body with a world soul, the Anima Mundi, creating a perfect, intelligent, and self-aware being. This was the original blueprint. The moment a soul was breathed into the cosmos, this cosmic soul was seen as the source of all order, beauty, and life, a rational principle that governed the stars and the seasons. But how does a grand cosmic soul relate to the life teeming on our own world? The Stoic philosophers provided a powerful answer. They adopted this concept and called it the logos spermatikos, the seminal reason. Imagine this as a creative fire, a generative intelligence that scatters seeds of itself throughout the universe. Every single thing, from an oak tree to a human mind, contains a spark of this divine, organizing logic. It is the rational principle within the seed that knows exactly how to become a tree, and the same principle within you that seeks meaning and order. This was the Anima Mundi made immanent, not far away in the heavens, but present and active in every facet of existence. Later, the Neoplatonist thinker Plotinus wove these threads into an even more intricate tapestry. For him, the world soul was a crucial emanation from the ultimate source, the One. It acted as the intermediary between the perfect, unified realm of divine mind and the fragmented, diverse world of matter. The Anima Mundi was the great conductor, receiving the pure ideas of the cosmos and orchestrating them into the physical laws and living forms we perceive. It is why nature seems so intelligently designed, because it is the direct expression of a cosmic soul thinking itself into reality. These ancient thinkers laid a firm philosophical foundation, establishing that the universe is alive, conscious, and intimately connected to our own inner self. So this was no mere abstraction, but a living intelligence that actively shaped reality. The ancient philosophers saw the Anima Mundi as the ultimate source of the world's breathtaking order and purpose. It was the reason why the planets moved in harmonious cycles, why seasons followed a predictable rhythm, and why life emerged from apparent chaos. This cosmic soul was the grand architect, endlessly weaving a tapestry of intricate patterns, from the spiral of a galaxy to the veins on a leaf. The material world was not a dead husk, but a sacred expression of this inner life, a body animated by a divine breath. Every single element of existence was therefore interconnected, bound together by this shared, intelligent spirit. This understanding transformed the universe from a collection of separate objects into a single, unified organism. Think of it like a vast forest. You can study one tree in isolation, but to truly understand its life, you must see it as part of the entire ecosystem. Its roots are interwoven with fungi that communicate with other trees. Its leaves filter the air for all creatures, and its existence is sustained by the sun and the rain that nourish the whole. In the same way, the ancient world, you saw every person, every animal, and every stone as an inseparable part of a living, breathing cosmic body. This meant that divinity was not confined to a far-off heaven. The divine was immanent, present here and now in the very substance of the world. To walk through a grove of trees was to walk through the thoughts of the world soul. To gaze at the stars was to witness the firing of its cosmic neurons. This radical perspective invited a profound sense of reverence for the natural world. It suggested that by observing the patterns in nature, we could come to understand the mind of the cosmos itself. This was a universe alive with meaning, where every event, no matter how small, was part of a grand, intelligent design. This philosophical vision of a living world became the very heartbeat of alchemy. The alchemist's grand mission was never truly about creating piles of gold. That was merely a symbol, an outer sign of an inner, far more profound achievement. The real goal was the spiritual purification and redemption of the alchemist's own soul, and by extension, the healing of the fractured Anima Mundi. They saw the cosmos as a single, living entity that had fallen into a state of imperfection, a state they symbolically called base metal. Their work in the laboratory was a sacred drama, a reenactment of the cosmic process of creation and return. Every step of their practice, from dissolving matter to coaxing it into a new, purified form, was a deliberate act of spiritual therapy for the world's soul. The fire in their furnace was not just a physical heat, but the fire of their own intense concentration and devotion. The alembic and flask became a miniature cosmos, a model of the universe where they could participate directly in its healing. When they worked to transmute lead, they were simultaneously working to transmute the heavy, base aspects of their own consciousness and the collective spiritual inertia of the world. The legendary philosopher's stone was not just a substance that could turn lead into gold. It was the embodiment of this perfected state, the ultimate medicine for both the human soul and the world soul. This is why alchemy was known as the great work. It was a profound spiritual and cosmological endeavor that demanded the alchemist's complete transformation. You could not hope to purify matter if your own heart was filled with greed or impurity. The laboratory was a mirror, and every success or failure in the flask reflected the state of the operator's own being. This sacred science was a path of return, a way to help the fragmented sparks of the divine consciousness, scattered throughout creation, find their way back to a state of wholeness and unity. This alchemical journey was meticulously mapped through stages of profound transformation. The first and most harrowing stage was known as the nigredo, the blackening. In the flask, this appeared as a putrefaction, a dissolution of base matter into a uniform, chaotic blackness. Symbolically, this was the dark night of the soul, a necessary descent into the shadowy depths of one's own being. It represented a state of utter confusion, despair, and the death of the old, impure self. For the world soul, this was the recognition of its own fractured state, the primal chaos and spiritual disconnection that permeated the material world. This was not an end, but a crucial beginning, for only from this blackest earth could new life truly sprout. From the fertile darkness of the nigredo emerged the albedo, the whitening, This stage symbolized purification, a washing of the soul that brought clarity and illumination. In the laboratory, matter would begin to show flashes of silver and white, a sign of its spiritual cleansing. For the alchemist, this was a moment of profound insight, where the mind was freed from its attachments and saw the divine light within. This white stage was the soul's first true awakening, a cleansing of the personal and collective spirit. It was the dawn after a long night, revealing the inherent purity that had been obscured by the blackness. The process then intensified into the citronitis, or yellowing, a stage often seen as a lesser sun. This was a further refinement, a period of intellectual and spiritual fermentation, where the insights gained during the whitening were tested and integrated. It was a necessary step of maturation, where the soul learned to express its newfound purity in the world. Finally, the entire ordeal culminated in the ultimate goal, the rubedo, the reddening. In the flask, this was the glorious appearance of the philosopher's stone, a radiant, ruby red substance. This was the stage of resurrection and completion. For the soul, it represented the final unification of spirit and matter, a state of conscious wholeness and divine love. For the fractured world soul, the alchemist's successful rubedo was a moment of profound healing, a rekindling of the divine spark within the cosmos itself. Every step in this sacred sequence was a deliberate act of spiritual sympathy. The alchemist believed that by willingly enduring the symbolic death of the Negrido within their own consciousness, they were helping the world soul bear its own burden of fragmentation. Their personal triumph in the rubedo was a microcosmic event that sent ripples of healing through the entire macrocosm. The laboratory, therefore, was far more than a workshop. It was a holy ground where the boundaries between self and cosmos dissolved, where one individual's inner transformation became a direct and potent force for universal redemption. These profound alchemical stages were not secret rituals, but were openly encoded within the texts that guided practitioners for centuries. The most famous of all is the Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus, a cryptic document that became the cornerstone of the entire tradition. Its opening lines are a thunderclap of cosmic truth, stating, "As above, so below, as within, so without." This is not a poetic suggestion, but a declaration of the Anima Mundi's fundamental law. It means the great cosmos above and the small human soul below are mirrors of one another, governed by the same principles and animated by the same world soul. The patterns of the stars are reflected in the patterns of your mind. Therefore, any transformation you wish to see in the outer world must begin with a corresponding transformation within your own being. The alchemist who seeks to purify gold must first purify his own heart. The tablet goes on to describe a single thing as the father of all creation, a clear reference to the universal spirit that is the source of all matter. It is through this one thing, this Anima Mundi, that all wonders are achieved. For the alchemist, this was a practical manual. By understanding and aligning with this singular consciousness, they believed they could unlock the hidden powers of nature itself. Centuries later, the revolutionary physician and alchemist Paracelsus built upon this foundation with his own powerful concepts. He spoke of the lima, a vital life matrix or celestial liquor that permeated all things. Imagine this lima as a kind of spiritual DNA, an invisible blueprint that holds the perfect form of every creature and object within the world soul. Paracelsus taught that this life matrix could be extracted and used. He believed an alchemist could, for instance, draw the lima from a plant and concentrate it into a powerful medicine that would heal not just the body, but the very life force of a person. This was alchemy as a form of medical and spiritual healing, directly interacting with the Anima Mundi's creative patterns. His work shows how the concept of a world soul was not abstract philosophy, but a practical tool for those who knew how to work with it. The goal was to tap into this living intelligence, to learn its language, and to cooperate with its innate drive toward wholeness and perfection. Yet within these cryptic texts, the written word was often not enough. The next great alchemical manuscript, the Rosarium Philosophorum, translated as the Rose Garden of the Philosophers, communicated its profound secrets through a series of stunning and bizarre illustrations. These images depict a king and a queen, representing the sun and moon, spirit and soul, engaged in a sacred marriage. This is the alchemical union of opposites, the conjunctio, and it is the ultimate symbol for the healing of the Anima Mundi. The fragmented world soul, split into masculine and feminine, active and receptive, above and below, finds its wholeness only when these opposing forces are reconciled and united. The Rosarium sequence shows their courtship, their death in a bath, and their eventual resurrection as a single androgynous being crowned with 5 petals, a symbol of the perfected spirit. This entire visual narrative is a map of the soul's journey, showing that the path to wholeness requires us to embrace and integrate every part of ourselves, even the parts that seem to be in conflict. But why go to such elaborate lengths with complex imagery? These manuscripts were deliberately encoded to protect their sacred knowledge from the uninitiated and from the watchful eyes of religious authorities. A casual observer might see only strange pictures of copulating royalty, but a trained alchemist would recognize the precise stages of inner transformation. The illustrations were a form of spiritual armor, ensuring that the powerful ideas about the living world soul would only be unlocked by those who had undertaken the necessary inner work to understand them. This encoding was not about secrecy for its own sake, but about preserving the integrity of a dangerous truth. To speak openly of a divine spirit trapped within matter and awaiting liberation was to challenge the very foundations of institutional power, which often insisted that divinity was separate from the fallen material world. The Rosarium's beautiful, enigmatic pictures were therefore a shield, protecting a revolutionary vision of a universe alive, conscious, and yearning for unity. These secret illustrations pointed toward a cosmic union, but the actual work of achieving it began with the very substance of the world. For the alchemist, the 4 classical elements were not just physical ingredients. They were the primary languages of the Anima Mundi. Earth, air, fire, and water were the fundamental expressions of the world soul's consciousness, each embodying a distinct quality of its being. Think of them not as separate blocks, but as 4 essential energies constantly interacting and flowing within the one living cosmos. The alchemist believed that to heal the fractured world soul, they first had to understand and master these 4 fundamental forces, both in their laboratory and, more importantly, within their own being. Earth represented the body of the world soul, its solidity, stability, and tangible form. It was the element of silence, patience, and the fertile ground from which all life springs. In the human soul, Earth corresponds to the physical body, our instincts, and our connection to the material world. When unbalanced, it manifests as heaviness, stagnation, or greed. Air was the world soul's breath and intellect. It symbolized communication, thought, and the invisible currents of life that connect all things. Within us, air is our mind, our rationality, and our capacity for abstract thought. An imbalance here could lead to disconnection, anxiety, or living entirely in one's head, untethered from reality. Then there was fire, the most potent and transformative of the elements. This was the world soul's passion, its will, and its purifying light. Fire was the divine spark itself, the engine of all change and evolution. In the human spirit, fire is our drive, our creativity, and our capacity for profound love or destructive anger. Uncontrolled, it consumes, but properly directed, it forges and illuminates. Finally, water reflected the world soul's emotional and intuitive nature. It was the element of flow, feeling, the subconscious, and the deep, hidden currents of life. Within our own psyche, water represents our emotions, our dreams, and our capacity for empathy and compassion. When out of balance, it could lead to emotional overwhelm, confusion, or a lack of boundaries. The alchemist's great work was to bring these four inner elements into a state of perfect harmony. Their laboratory procedures were a physical echo of this internal balancing act. The process of calcination, burning a substance to ash, was an engagement with inner fire designed to burn away the ego's impurities. Dissolution, the act of dissolving that ash in water, was about washing the soul with emotion and intuition, cleansing it of the residue left by the fire. Distillation, separating the pure from the impure through vaporization and condensation, was a dance of air and water, refining the thoughts and feelings. And coagulation, the final solidification into a new, perfected substance, was the work of earth, grounding the spiritual insights into a stable, transformed reality. This was the true secret. The alchemist who sought the philosopher's stone was not merely mixing chemicals. They were undertaking a profound inner alchemy, striving to balance their own earthy stability with fiery will, their airy intellect with watery intuition. They understood that a soul ruled by unchecked fire would burn out, while one dominated by heavy earth would never change. Only when all four elements within were purified and brought into a sacred equilibrium could the individual soul become a clear vessel for the world soul's wholeness. The perfected goal they sought was, in the end, the luminous state of their own being, a microcosm in perfect balance, which then radiated that harmony back into the waiting macrocosm. Beyond the dance of the four elements lies a fifth. This is the quintessence, the ether, the pure and luminous substance of the world soul itself. While earth, air, fire, and water form the body and personality of the cosmos, the quintessence is its divine lifeblood. It is not a physical element you can touch or see, but a subtle, spiritual medium that permeates all of creation. Imagine it as the hidden light within a diamond, the silent music that holds the stars in their courses, or the invisible thread of consciousness connecting every living thing. For the alchemist, this quintessence was the ultimate goal of the great work. It was the divine spark trapped within the prison of base matter, the fragment of pure Anima Mundi waiting to be set free. Their entire operation, from the initial blackening to the final reddening, was a meticulous process of stripping away the coarse layers of the four elements. They were not destroying matter, but refining it, peeling back the veil of physicality to reveal the brilliant, spiritual core hidden within. The legendary philosopher's stone was believed to be the physical embodiment of this liberated quintessence, a substance so pure it could instantly transmit its perfection, turning lead into gold because it first turned the soul toward the light. This pursuit reveals a breathtaking purpose. The alchemist was not a mere chemist, but a liberator of spirit. Each successful transmutation in the laboratory was a symbolic act of freeing a sliver of the world soul from its material confinement, a small but real step in the cosmic process of redemption. The ultimate perfection they sought was this state of unity, where spirit and matter are no longer in conflict, but are reconciled as one. In this final vision, the entire universe shimmers with the radiance of the quintessence, and every atom sings with the unbroken song of the Anima Mundi. The serpent devouring its own tail, the Ouroboros, is one of the most potent images in all of alchemy. It is the world soul in a state of perfect, self-sustaining eternity. This ancient symbol shows a creature that needs nothing from the outside to survive, for its end is its beginning, and its beginning is its end. It represents the cyclical nature of all existence, the endless process of death and rebirth that governs the cosmos, the seasons, and the human soul. For the alchemist, the Ouroboros was the ultimate model of the Anima Mundi, a consciousness so complete it perpetually consumes and renews itself. It is the universe breathing in and out, a closed loop of infinite energy where nothing is ever lost, only transformed. This symbol whispers that you, too, are part of this endless cycle, that every ending you face is secretly a new beginning in disguise. Another profound symbol emerges from the alchemical furnace, the rubis. This is the crowned, two-headed figure, often shown with male and female attributes, holding the sun and moon. The name itself means the double thing, and it represents the final, perfected state of the great work. The rubis is the healed world soul, the ultimate union of all opposites. It is not merely a fusion of male and female, but of spirit and matter, soul and body, the cosmic above and the human below. This is the resolution of the great division that caused the Anima Mundi to feel fractured in the first place. Where the Ouroboros shows the cycle, the rubis shows the goal, the state of wholeness achieved at the end of that cycle. It is the androgynous being that has integrated every aspect of itself, the microcosm that has become a perfect mirror of the macrocosm. To gaze upon the rubis is to see a vision of your own potential completeness, a self that has reconciled its inner fire and water, its earthly instincts and its airy thoughts, into a single radiant being. Why did alchemists rely on such mysterious images instead of writing plain instructions? These symbols speak a language that bypasses the rational mind and speaks directly to the soul. They are not just pictures, they are portals. Contemplating the Ouroboros can induce a state of meditation on the nature of time and your own eternal essence. Studying the rubis can help you feel, intuitively, what it might be like to be wholly integrated, to have your inner conflicts finally at peace. The symbols act as maps for territories of consciousness that words alone cannot describe. They are the fingerprints of the Anima Mundi, left on the pages of ancient texts for those with eyes to see. They tell a story of a universe that is alive, conscious, and forever moving through cycles of fragmentation and return toward its own glorious wholeness. And in that story, you are not just a spectator. You are an essential character, a living spark of that same world soul, on your own journey from the serpent's tail to its head. One of the most fearsome and vital figures in the alchemical bestiary is the green lion. This creature is not a gentle guardian of nature, but a raw, untamed force of immense power. It is depicted as a lion, often a vibrant, unsettling green, in the act of devouring the sun. This terrifying image holds a profound secret about the nature of the world soul and the work required to heal it. The green lion represents the raw, unrefined vital force of the Anima Mundi itself. It is the ferocious life energy that surges through the wilderness, the chaotic, creative power that drives both growth and decay in the natural world. In the laboratory, the green lion was symbolized by a powerful solvent, often a highly corrosive acid that could dissolve gold, the metal of the sun. This act of devouring, of breaking down a perfect, noble metal into its base components, was a necessary and terrifying first step. You cannot build something new without first dismantling the old. The green lion's corrosive action is the embodiment of this primal dissolution. It represents the chaotic, unconscious power of the world soul that must be confronted and harnessed, not avoided. This is the untamed spirit of nature that resists all human control, the wild, creative, destructive impulse that exists before order is imposed. For the alchemist, this meant that the journey to wholeness began by facing the most volatile and dangerous aspects of existence, both in the flask and within their own soul. They had to learn to work with this ferocious green energy, to respect its power without being destroyed by it. The green lion is the unbridled passion, the primal instinct, the raw will to live that can either consume a person or become the very fuel for their transformation. Taming this lion did not mean killing it. Its vital energy was absolutely essential. Once its corrosive power was mastered and directed, this same ferocious force became the primary agent of purification and change. The lion that devours the sun ultimately provides the strength for the sun to be reborn, brighter and more perfect than before. This is the ultimate lesson of the green line. The path to spiritual gold, to a healed world soul, requires us to courageously embrace the wild, untamed, and even destructive forces within ourselves and the cosmos. We must learn to harness that raw, green vitality, transforming its chaotic power into a focused, creative fire that forges, not destroys, that unites rather than devours. The great work cannot even begin without first offering yourself to the jaws of this magnificent and terrible beast. This descent into matter is the great primal drama of the soul. The Anima Mundi did not fall as a punishment, but as a profound act of creative sacrifice. Imagine a brilliant, unified light choosing to shatter itself into countless sparks, each fragment cast into the farthest reaches of material existence. This is the Gnostic and alchemical narrative of the divine plunge into density. The world soul willingly entered the state of separation, immersing itself in the heavy sleep of matter to experience itself from infinite new perspectives. You are one of those perspectives. Your very sense of being a separate self, isolated within a physical body, is a direct echo of that original cosmic act of fragmentation. This was not a sin, but a necessary division, like a seed breaking open in the dark soil. The seed must cease being a single, whole seed to become a forest. The unified consciousness had to shatter to know the richness of individuality, to experience love, longing, and the triumphant joy of finding its way back home. In this sacred view, the entire physical universe is not a corrupt prison, but a vast and intricate playground for the soul's awakening. The dense metal of lead, the stubborn rock, the swirling chaos of the elements, all hold within them a slumbering divine spark, a forgotten memory of celestial unity. The alchemist saw this not as a tragedy to be mourned, but as the essential first step of the great work. How can you achieve reintegration if you were never separated? How can you appreciate wholeness if you have never known fragmentation? This fall into matter set the stage for the most glorious process in the cosmos, the arduous, beautiful, and redemptive journey of return. Every longing you have ever felt for connection, every moment of beauty that made your heart ache, every time you sought meaning in a seemingly random event, that is the Anima Mundi within you, remembering its true nature and yearning to become whole again. This profound responsibility meant the alchemist was far more than a mystic. They were a cosmic physician. Their laboratory was a clinic for a sick universe, and their spiritual practices were the medicine intended to cure the spiritual malaise of the Anima Mundi itself. They diagnosed the world's condition as one of profound disconnection, a fragmentation where spirit had become lost in matter, and their entire work was a deliberate course of treatment. Every prayer, every moment of focused meditation, and every precise action at the furnace was not a personal hobby, but a therapeutic intervention on a cosmic scale. The alchemist believed their own inner state was the primary instrument of healing. A heart clouded by greed or impatience would only add to the world's sickness, while a soul purified by discipline and love could become a clear channel for wholeness. This is why the texts are filled with moral injunctions, warning that only the pure can accomplish the great work. The alchemist had to heal themselves to become a vessel through which the world could be healed. Their laboratory operations were physical prescriptions for this cosmic illness. When they dissolved a substance in the first stage, they were symbolically breaking down the rigid, hardened structures of a world soul trapped in separation. The act of purification through fire was an offering of concentrated will, a burning away of the collective spiritual apathy that kept the universe feeling dead and mechanical. And the final coagulation, the creation of a new, stable, and radiant substance, was the ultimate goal, the moment a small part of the cosmos was restored to its original, healthy, and luminous state. This was not a solitary pursuit for personal enlightenment. The weight of all creation rested on their shoulders. A successful transmutation was a ripple of sanity returned to a fractured mind, a moment of clarity for the world soul. It was an act of supreme compassion, where one individual, through immense personal effort, took upon themselves the task of helping God remember itself. In this sacred role, the alchemist became a co-creator with the divine, actively participating in the mending of the very fabric of reality, one prayer and one experiment at a time. This cosmic role of the physician reached its zenith during the Renaissance, a period of explosive rebirth where this ancient wisdom flooded back into the Western mind. After the long intellectual winter of the Middle Ages, a new spring arrived, and with it came a passionate revival of the world soul. The epicenter of this reawakening was Florence, where the brilliant scholar Marsilio Ficino established his Platonic academy under the patronage of the Medici family. Ficino's mission was nothing less than the spiritual resuscitation of Europe, and his primary tool was the translation and teaching of Plato's works, long lost to the West. In these rediscovered texts, he found the blueprint for a living, ensouled universe, and he made the Anima Mundi the very heart of his philosophy. For Ficino and his followers, the world soul was the essential middle term, the golden chain that connected a transcendent God to the tangible, physical world. God was the pure, unmoving source, and the material realm was the dense and distant effect. Without a connecting principle, the two would be forever separate, a divine king ruling a dead kingdom. The Anima Mundi was that vital link, the great animating principle that received the divine light from above and lovingly poured it into the forms of nature below. It was the reason the world was not a corpse, but a living, breathing, sacred body. This was a spiritual revolution. It meant that divinity was not locked away in a far-off heaven, but was pulsing through every leaf, every stream, and every stone. The natural world was no longer a mere resource to be used or a temptation to be avoided, but a direct expression of God's living presence, a holy book written by the hand of the world soul. To study nature was to study theology. To walk in a garden was to commune with the divine. Ficino took this idea to its ultimate, practical conclusion. He believed that because everything was connected by this single, flowing soul, everything exerted an influence on everything else. This was the foundation of Renaissance astrology and natural magic. The planets, themselves seen as living intelligences within the world soul, radiated specific spiritual qualities. Ficino taught that we could consciously attract these celestial influences to heal our own souls and bodies. He would compose specific music, use certain scents and stones, and even arrange his daily life in harmony with the planets, not out of superstition, but as a doctor of the soul, deliberately tuning his own spirit to the healing frequencies of the cosmos. He was, in essence, practicing a form of spiritual ecology, working with the currents of the Anima Mundi to maintain his own health and vitality. This Florentine revival transformed the human relationship with the world. It gave people permission to fall in love with nature again, to see beauty as a divine language, and to believe that their own human soul was a vital, active participant in a cosmic symphony conducted by the world soul. Giordano Bruno took this living cosmos and flung its gates open to infinity. A former Dominican monk turned revolutionary philosopher, Bruno absorbed the Florentine revival of the world soul and then pushed it to its most radical and terrifying conclusion. He declared that the universe was not merely a single, ensouled sphere with Earth at its center, but an infinite expanse filled with a countless number of suns, each orbited by its own inhabited world. And crucially, he taught that every single one of these stars and planets was itself a living being, an individual animal with its own soul, a unique expression of the infinite Anima Mundi. For Bruno, the divine presence was not just in our world, but pouring forth in an endless, creative outpouring across a cosmos without boundaries. This was a breathtakingly pantheistic vision. God was not a separate ruler watching from a heavenly throne, but the very life and intelligence immanent within every atom of this boundless creation. The universe itself was the primary revelation of the divine, and to limit it was to limit God. This idea of a living, infinite, and multi-world universe directly contradicted the orthodox religious and scientific doctrines of his time. The Church taught a finite, hierarchical cosmos created solely for humanity's benefit, with Earth at the center of divine attention. Bruno's vision dismantled this entire structure. If there were countless other worlds, each with its own intelligent life and its own relationship to God, then humanity was no longer the singular focus of a cosmic drama. This was not just a scientific hypothesis, it was a theological earthquake. Bruno's philosophy granted a profound, inherent sanctity to all of existence, but it also stripped the institutional church of its unique role as the sole mediator between humanity and a distant God. Why seek salvation through a single institution when the divine was present and speaking through every stone, every flame, and every distant star? His ideas were a direct threat to the very foundation of ecclesiastical authority. For these beliefs, Bruno was pursued by the Inquisition for years, subjected to a long trial, and ultimately, in the year 1600, burned at the stake in Rome's Campo de Fiore. He was not executed for a scientific claim about heliocentrism, but for the spiritual and metaphysical implications of an infinite, living universe. His martyrdom stands as a stark testament to the immense power that the concept of the Anima Mundi held, and the peril that came with defending it too openly. Bruno's fate reminds us that the idea of a world soul was never just an abstract philosophy, but a revolutionary force that could overturn the established order of heaven and earth. Bruno's infinite cosmos was not a silent void, but a vibrant, thinking creature, and its thoughts were written in the moving lights of the heavens. This is the profound link between the Anima Mundi and astrology, a connection that transforms the stars from random specks into the living organs of a universal being. For the alchemist and the Renaissance mage, the planets were not distant balls of rock and gas. They were the visible expressions of the world soul's own intelligence, each one a specialized faculty in the mind of the cosmos. Saturn was not just a planet, it was the cosmic faculty of concentration, structure, and limitation. Jupiter expressed the soul's capacity for expansion, benevolence, and order. Mars was its pure will and assertive energy, Venus its unifying love and attraction, and Mercury its fluid intellect and communication. The starry vault was the world soul's vast, expressive face, and its movements were the shifting expressions of a single cosmic consciousness. To ignore these celestial rhythms was to be out of sync with the very life force you were trying to heal. This is why the alchemist's laboratory was always more than a room with a furnace. It was an observatory. Their work was meticulously timed to the dance of the planets. An operation requiring dissolution and the breaking down of forms would be initiated under a watery moon or a transformative Pluto, aligning the inner process with that specific quality of the cosmic mind. The crucial stage of coagulation, where matter was fixed into its new, perfected state, was performed under the stable, structuring influence of Saturn. They were not simply waiting for a lucky day, they were practicing a form of spiritual sympathy, tuning their small, human-scale work to the immense frequencies of the Anima Mundi. Think of it like a sailor who raises a sail not to create the wind, but to catch the wind that is already blowing. The alchemist was raising the sail of their own intention and their laboratory work to catch the specific spiritual currents flowing from the celestial organs of the world soul. They believed that by aligning their operations with, for instance, the sun's entry into Aries, the sign of new beginnings. They were plugging their experiment directly into the cosmos's own burst of creative fire. This synchronization made their work infinitely more potent. It was no longer just one person in a room trying to change lead. It was a conscious collaboration with the entire living universe. The fire in their furnace became an extension of the solar fire. The waters in their flask mirrored the celestial waters of the moon, and the transformations they witnessed were echoes of the endless transformations occurring within the body of the world soul itself. In this sacred science, astrology was the essential clock that told the time of the soul's own seasons, and to work in harmony with it was to become a conscious participant in the breathing of God. This ancient doctrine of a world soul did not vanish with the alchemists' furnaces. It found a new and powerful voice in the modern world through the pioneering work of Carl Jung. The Swiss psychiatrist, delving into the depths of the human psyche, encountered the same primordial patterns the alchemists had described. He reframed the Anima Mundi for a scientific age, calling it the collective unconscious. This is not a personal memory bank, but the inherited, foundational layer of the human mind, a vast, shared psychic substrate that belongs to all of humanity. Imagine it as a deep, underground ocean that exists beneath the small, personal island of your conscious awareness. Every human being is connected to this same ocean. Its waters are the accumulated experience of our entire species, and from its depths arise universal forms and forces that Jung named archetypes. These archetypes are the fundamental patterns of the Anima Mundi, expressing themselves through us. They are the psychic organs of the world soul, the invisible blueprints for the most powerful themes in human life. The mother is an archetype, a universal pattern of nurturing, creation, and sustenance. The hero is an archetype, a pattern of courage, sacrifice, and the quest for wholeness. The trickster is an archetype, representing chaos, change, and the breaking of old rules. You do not learn these patterns from culture. You are born with a predisposition to recognize them, because they are the native language of the collective unconscious itself. Your entire life journey, with its profound struggles, its loves, and its transformations, can be seen as an interaction with these timeless, psychic forces. Your personal story is a unique variation on a mythic theme written by the world soul. Jung saw the process of individuation, which is the lifelong journey toward becoming a complete and integrated individual, as the modern equivalent of the alchemical great work. It is the process of making the unconscious conscious, of bringing these powerful archetypal energies from the dark depths of the collective ocean into the light of your own awareness. When you confront your shadow, the hidden and often denied parts of your personality, you are engaging in your own personal negrito, a descent into blackness for the sake of future purification. When you connect with your inner anima or animus, the contrasexual soul image within, you are performing the sacred alchemical marriage, the conjunctio, uniting opposites within your own being. And when you experience moments of profound meaning and connection, what Jung called synchronicity, you are witnessing the Anima Mundi in action. Synchronicity is a meaningful coincidence, an event in the outer world that perfectly mirrors a shift in your inner world, with no apparent cause and effect link. It is the law of as above, so below playing out in real time, a wink from the world soul reminding you that you are not separate from the cosmic pattern. In Jung's psychology, the goal is not to escape the world, but to fully embrace your role within it, to become a conscious vessel through which the archetypes of the collective unconscious can live and express themselves in a balanced, individual way. You heal your own fragmentation, and in doing so, you contribute to the healing of the vast, psychic universe you are forever a part of. Jung's library was filled with cryptic alchemical manuscripts, texts most scholars dismissed as primitive chemistry or mere superstition. But he saw something entirely different. In the strange, symbolic language of the alchemists, Jung found a pre-scientific map of the human psyche, a detailed guide to the very process of psychological transformation he was witnessing in his patients. His monumental work, Psychology and Alchemy, was the result of this stunning realization. He came to understand that the alchemist at his furnace was not just working with metals, he was projecting the contents of his own unconscious onto the mysterious transformations in the flask. The entire alchemical drama, from the black chaos of the Negrito to the radiant red of the Rubido, was a symbolic representation of psychotherapy itself. The alchemist's laboratory was the consulting room. The prima materia was the raw, unexamined psyche, and the fire of the furnace was the heat of conscious attention required for change. The goal of both the alchemist and the psychotherapist was identical: the integration of the unconscious. For Jung, this meant bringing the shadow, the anima or animus, and all the other hidden parts of the self into a conscious relationship with the ego. This difficult, often painful process of self-confrontation was the modern equivalent of the alchemical purification stages. It was the only way to achieve psychological wholeness, a state Jung called individuation. And what was the ultimate prize of this inner work? The alchemists called it the lapis philosophorum, the philosopher's stone. Jung interpreted this legendary object not as a physical substance, but as the symbol of the fully realized self, the central archetype of wholeness that emerges when the conscious and unconscious minds are finally reconciled. The stone represents the person you are meant to become, a state of being where your inner conflicts have found peace and your unique potential is fully expressed. This is not an end to personal growth, but the beginning of living from a place of profound inner unity. The alchemical gold was never in the crucible. It was the luminous, durable consciousness forged in the fires of self-knowledge. When an individual undertakes this journey, they do more than heal their own personal fragmentation. By integrating their own unconscious, they are actively healing a tiny fragment of the collective human soul, contributing to the mending of the Anima Mundi itself. Your personal path to wholeness is, in a very real sense, a continuation of the alchemist's great work. The same vision of a living earth that guided the alchemists has reemerged in the language of modern science. In the late 20th century, chemist James Lovelock introduced the Gaia hypothesis, a revolutionary theory that the Earth's biosphere, atmosphere, oceans, and soil form a complex, interacting system that behaves like a single, living organism. This is the Anima Mundi stripped of its mystical robes and dressed in the data of planetary science. Lovelock argued that life does not merely exist on a passive planet, but actively regulates its own environment to maintain the conditions necessary for its own survival. For instance, despite the sun's energy increasing by 30% since life began, the Earth's average temperature has remained stable enough for liquid water and life to persist. This is not a lucky accident, but the result of a vast, self-correcting dance between living organisms and their inorganic surroundings. The salinity of the oceans, the composition of the atmosphere, and the global surface temperature are all held in a delicate, dynamic balance by the living planet itself. This scientific framework gives us a new vocabulary for the old intuition that the world is a single, breathing entity. The Gaia hypothesis transforms the world's soul from a philosophical concept into an ecological imperative. If the Earth is indeed a living system, then human activity is not an external force acting upon a dead rock, but a metabolic process within a global body. Our industrial pollution is not just dirtying a landscape, it is like a toxin entering the bloodstream of a vast creature. The clearing of the rainforests is not just a loss of habitat, it is the removal of a vital organ responsible for regulating climate and producing oxygen. This perspective places a profound responsibility upon our species. We are not the masters of nature, but a conscious part of the planetary whole, and our choices directly impact the health of the entire system. The ancient alchemist sought to heal the fractured world soul through spiritual practice, while the modern ecologist works to heal the living earth through conservation and sustainable action. Both are responding to the same fundamental truth, that we are inextricably linked to a conscious, animate cosmos, and its well-being is ultimately our own. This ancient intuition of a living world has never been confined to dusty manuscripts. It has always pulsed through the heart of art and poetry, giving form to a feeling that is otherwise too vast to name. The Romantic poets of the 18th and 19th centuries were perhaps its most passionate voices, rebelling against a world they saw as being stripped of its spirit by cold reason and industry. For William Blake, the entire cosmos was holy, and the divine presence was not distant but intimately close. His famous line, "To see a world in a grain of sand," is a perfect expression of the Anima Mundi in action. He was not speaking metaphorically. He was describing a direct, mystical perception where the smallest particle of matter contains the entire pattern of the universe. In his visionary art and poetry, a single flower could hold infinite heavens, and every creature, no matter how humble, was an eternal being. Blake saw the human imagination itself as the very faculty through which we participate in this world soul. For him, to imagine was to touch the divine, and the artist's task was to cleanse the doors of perception so that everything would appear as it is, infinite. This was a spiritual war against a worldview that saw the world as a dead machine, and his entire body of work was a testament to a universe alive with sacred fire. This same fire burned in the work of the symbolist painters who emerged later. Artists like Gustave Moreau and Odilon Redon turned away from depicting the outer world realistically and instead sought to paint the inner world of dreams, myths, and the soul. Their canvases are filled with archetypal images that feel like they have emerged directly from the collective unconscious. A single eye might float in a sunset, a spirit might rise from a flower, or a figure might commune with a phantom. These are not mere fantasies. They are portraits of the Anima Mundi itself, rendered in color and form. They depict a reality where the boundaries between mind and matter are fluid, where thoughts have substance, and the landscape is a mirror of the psyche. The symbolists gave us a visual language for the invisible connections that bind all things, showing us a world that is perpetually dreaming itself into existence. This powerful theme did not fade with the past century. It has found a vibrant new home in modern fantasy literature. The genre is filled with worlds that are not just settings, but active, conscious characters. In J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth, the very forests have a spirit and a will, from the ancient, watchful Ents to the malevolent consciousness of Old Man Willow. The land itself feels pain when evil forces scar it, and its fate is inextricably tied to the moral choices of its inhabitants. Ursula K. Le Guin's Earth-Sea cycle is built upon a similar principle of balance, where every action, every word of power, has a consequence that ripples through the whole world. To know the true name of a thing is to know its essence, to touch the part of the world soul that animates it. And in the science fiction of Frank Herbert's Dune, the desert planet Arrakis is a complete ecosystem with its own deep intelligence, a consciousness embodied in the vast sandworms and the life-giving spice they produce. These are not arbitrary plot devices. They are modern myths that reacquaint us with the ancient idea of an ensouled world. They remind us that we are not separate observers in a dead universe, but participants in a living, breathing, and responsive whole. When a hero in a fantasy novel heals a blighted land, they are performing the same symbolic act as the alchemist in their laboratory, restoring a fragment of the world soul to health. These stories resonate so deeply because they speak to a truth we have always sensed but often forgotten, that the world is not in it, but a thou. This living current of the world soul is not a relic of the past, but a present reality for modern practitioners who seek direct contact. In contemporary esoteric traditions, the Anima Mundi is approached as a conscious partner in a sacred dialogue. Rituals become more than symbolic gestures. They are precise technologies of consciousness designed to establish resonance with this universal life force. A practitioner might create a sacred space, a temporary microcosm, using symbols that represent the elements and the cosmos. By arranging a candle for fire, a bowl of water, a feather for air, and a stone for earth, they are not just decorating an altar. They are actively constructing a tuned circuit, a focal point where the boundary between their individual soul and the world soul becomes thin and permeable. The rhythmic chanting, the focused visualization, the deliberate gestures all serve a single purpose: to align the practitioner's personal vibration with the immense, humming frequency of the Anima Mundi itself. It is an act of cosmic listening, a way of stilling the internal noise to hear the whisper of the world. Meditation becomes the primary method for this deep listening. It is not about emptying the mind, but about filling it with a different quality of awareness. A practitioner might meditate on the image of the Ouroboros, feeling the eternal cycle of consumption and renewal within their own breath. They might visualize their own body not as a separate entity, but as a nexus of energies where the four elements of the world soul converge and interact. The goal is to shift from the perception of being a self-contained individual to the direct experience of being a localized expression of a vast, singular consciousness. In this state, insights that feel like personal revelations are understood as transmissions from the Anima Mundi, pieces of its ancient wisdom delivered to a ready and receptive vessel. This is not about acquiring power over nature, but about gaining wisdom through participation. The practitioner seeks to understand the world from the inside out, to know a tree not by its botany, but by feeling the surge of its sap as an expression of the same life that animates their own blood. Symbolic magic operates on this same principle of resonance and correspondence. Every symbol, from a planetary sigil to a rune, is seen as a key that unlocks a specific door within the mansion of the world soul. When a practitioner draws the symbol for Venus, they are not summoning an external goddess. They are activating the archetypal principle of love, harmony, and attraction within the collective psyche. They are, in effect, dialing a specific frequency of the Anima Mundi's being. By working with these symbols through talismans or focused attention, they aim to draw those qualities into their own lives and radiate them back into the world, fostering healing on both a personal and a transpersonal level. This is how the modern esotericist participates in the cosmic evolution of consciousness. Each ritual, each meditation, each act of symbolic magic is a deliberate, conscious spark sent back into the whole. It is an affirmation that the fragmentation of the world can be healed, one intentional connection at a time, by choosing to align their will with the deep, underlying current of life and intelligence. The practitioner becomes an active cell in the world's awakening body, contributing their own unique note to the symphony of a soul returning to its native wholeness. This living connection is not a distant philosophy, but a key that unlocks a profound shift in your own spiritual life. Recognizing the Anima Mundi transforms spirituality from a search for something outside yourself to a practice of deepening your relationship with the world you are already a part of. Your daily walk in the park is no longer just exercise. It becomes a communion. The tree outside your window is not an object, but a fellow expression of the same universal life force. Its quiet presence a form of silent communication from the world soul. This awareness fosters a natural and heartfelt reverence for nature. You might find yourself pausing to truly see the intricate pattern on a leaf, or feeling a genuine sense of gratitude for the clean water you drink. This is not an imposed duty, but an organic response to realizing that the earth is a sacred, living being, and you are a conscious part of its body. Your spiritual practice becomes grounded, literally and figuratively, in the soil, the air, and the water that sustain you. This shift inevitably awakens a deeper ecological consciousness. When you perceive the world as a thou and not in it, your relationship with consumption and waste changes on a fundamental level. The plastic bottle in your hand is no longer just trash, but a fragment of a system that is harming a living entity. You begin to feel the consequences of pollution not as abstract statistics, but as wounds inflicted on a being you are in relationship with. This perspective moves environmentalism from a political stance to a spiritual imperative, a direct expression of care for the world soul that animates your own soul. You become a guardian, a participant in the planet's well-being, because its health is inseparable from your own deepest spiritual health. Ultimately, this recognition makes you a co-creator in a conscious universe. Your thoughts, your intentions, and your actions are no longer small, isolated events. They are ripples in the pond of a shared consciousness. A moment of personal peace you cultivate through meditation is a note of harmony added to the world soul symphony. An act of kindness you extend to another person is a healing balm applied to the collective spirit. You begin to understand that your personal journey toward wholeness is your unique and essential contribution to the great work of cosmic mending. Your life becomes a living ritual, a continuous dialogue with an intelligent, responsive universe that is listening, learning, and evolving through you. How will your choices change when you know that you are not just living in the world, but that the world is living through you? Yet this vision of a living world is often misunderstood. Some hear the term world soul and picture a literal ghost hiding inside the planet, a single, gigantic spirit that secretly pulls the strings of nature like a puppeteer. This is not the Anima Mundi. It is not a separate entity living inside a dead machine, but the very life and consciousness of the machine itself. Think of it this way. The wetness of water is not an ingredient added to it. It is an inseparable quality of its being. In the same way, life and consciousness are not components added to the cosmos. They are its fundamental nature. The Anima Mundi is the wetness of the universe, the inherent intelligence that expresses itself through every swirling galaxy and every sprouting seed. Another common misconception is that this is merely personification, a poetic way of saying nature is beautiful. We say the river sings or the forest sleeps, and assume the Anima Mundi is just a charming metaphor. But the metaphysical principle is far more radical. It proposes that the river truly does express a form of consciousness, not a human consciousness with thoughts and feelings like ours, but its own unique, aqueous awareness. The forest possesses a vegetative intelligence, a slow, deep dreaming that governs its growth and interconnections. This is not about projecting a human mind onto nature, but about recognizing the vast spectrum of mind that nature already is. The Anima Mundi is the singular source from which all these diverse forms of awareness spring. It is the root system connecting the conscious mind of a human to the photosynthetic awareness of a leaf and the gravitational intelligence of a star. When you feel a deep sense of peace while walking by the ocean, you are not just projecting your own calm onto the water. You are resonating with the actual, living presence of that place. You are tuning your own soul to a specific frequency of the world soul. This is why the concept has persisted for millennia across philosophy, mysticism, and now even in systems science. It answers a deep intuition that the universe is not a cold, empty accident, but a meaningful, participatory reality. The Anima Mundi is not a ghost in the machine. It is the luminous, conscious fabric from which the machine is woven, from the celestial spheres of Plato to the self-regulating biosphere of Gaia. This single, luminous thread of a living world has woven its way through human history. We began with a philosopher's vision of a cosmos endowed with its own soul, journeyed through the alchemist's furnace, where inner transformation healed a fractured universe, and witnessed the martyrdom of a man who dared to proclaim its infinite life. We saw this idea reborn in the consulting room of psychology as the collective unconscious and validated by modern science as a planetary system striving for balance. This is the incredible legacy of the Anima Mundi. It is not an outdated belief, but a perennial truth, constantly rediscovered in new languages across the ages. Its core message is one of radical and profound interconnection, a reminder that the same life that animates the stars breathes within you. The alchemist's great work was never meant to be completed in a distant past or by a select few. It is a living, ongoing process, and you are now a vital participant. Every time you choose to seek understanding over judgment, every moment you strive to heal a fragment of your own inner conflict, you are performing a modern act of alchemy. You are purifying a tiny part of the universal spirit that flows through you. By mending your own soul, you send a ripple of wholeness into the vast, waiting consciousness of the world. This is your invitation to the greatest work of all, to live your life not as a solitary spectator, but as a conscious, compassionate cell in the awakening body of a sacred universe.